Emanuel Lasker. The Life of a Chess Master. Dr. Jhanak. Emanuel Lasker. The Life of a Chess Master. With annotations of more than 100 of his greatest games. Foreword by Albert Einstein. Chapter 4. Professional in England and America. In London they were planning the World Exhibition, and someone had sensibly decided that so comprehensive a show of human endeavor would not be complete without a chess pavilion. Naturally, once that decision was taken, the need to offer the public a special attraction was evident, and so the manager of the pavilion hit upon the idea of inviting that rising young chess master Emanuel Lasker to London and hiring him as the star attraction of the show. It wasn't a very exacting task. Lasker's beauties included the readiness to play all comers, and since most of the visitors were mere duffers, it did not require much of an effort on the master's part. It was, indeed, rather dull work. But the pay was good. By the young man's very modest standards it was almost magnificent. There was a constant crowd of male and female admirers, and for the first time in his life Emanuel Lasker could enjoy, or, at any rate, experience the sweets of being the object of hero worship. Very soon he could save as much as £10 to be sent to his parents at Berlin, and presently the news of an enormous cheque from London spread like wildfire. Why, what great good luck! Fancy Cantor Lasker's Emanuel being a millionaire, and in England too. In point of fact, he could soon spare another £10, enough to facilitate his parents' move to Berlin, where Bertold was now safely established as a doctor. Happily, and very proud of their clever sons, the old people were settled in a small flat, conveniently near the elder son's fast-growing practice. But as for Emanuel, it would take a long time for them to see more of him than his loyal contributions to their small household. His stay in London dragged on and on. Just like Steinitz 30 years earlier, so Lasker had come to London for what was meant to be a few weeks, and just like Steinitz he stayed on 4 years. The young German chess star got plenty of engagements for matches and tournaments, and in every one of them he triumphed. He played a couple of games against the British Master League, winning one and drawing the other. He beat the Austrian Master English in a short match by 2:0, with 3 draws. He gave Bird a return match of 5 games, winning every one of them. Then came the biggest test of all, J.H. Blackburn, for many years British champ 79. Emanuel Lasker 30. Iron, and the battle-tried hero of many a tournament and match. Not so long ago, in the great Manchester tournament of 1890, he had been runner-up to Tarrasch, who had come to be regarded as almost invincible, but Blackburn's second prize had left him well ahead of Bird, Mackenzie and quite a duster of renowned international masters. Surely he would put a stop to young Lasker's uninterrupted run of triumphs in the British Isles. He didn't. The young man seemed as little overawed by the great Blackburn as by anybody else. Out of 10 games he won 6 and drew 4. Further successes were to come in the annual tournament of the British Chess Federation and in the subsequent quintangular. In the BCF tournament Lasker had the fine score of 9 points out of 11 games, and in the quintangular, the double-round affair, Lasker won 5 and drew 3 games, well ahead of such formidable opponents as Bird, Blackburn, Gunsberg, Mason. Within the brief span of less than 2 years Lasker had gone a long way towards challenging the hegemony of Tarrasch in European chess. Possibly Tarrasch was beginning to feel slightly embarrassed by the growing fame of young Lasker, but neither he nor Lasker himself, at that time, could have guessed how soon and how much more deeply the older master would be embarrassed by his competitor, long before they were to meet over the board in a tournament, let alone in the more convincing contest of a match. As for the next phase in Lasker's life, it is odd that once again he followed in Steinitz's footsteps. Steinitz had come to London in 1862, merely to play in a tournament. He had meant to return to Vienna at once, but he stayed on for 20 years. Then he had moved on to America, again for what was meant to be a brief visit, but once again he stayed for nearly 20 years, very rarely interrupted by visits to Europe. In Lasker's life we have much the same pattern, even if compressed in shorter spans of time, with changes more frequent and more rapid as befitted the faster heartbeat of a more modern age. He too had come to London for a short engagement, but he stayed on for 2 years. He too went on to America, and stayed there for years rather than the few months originally intended. In the USA he had an uninterrupted run of successes to confirm and enhance the reputation built up in England. In the New York tournament of 1893 he won all his 13 games, far ahead of such renowned masters as Holden, Hodges, Schultz and young Pillsbury. In matches he disposed of Golombeck by 2-0, with one drawn, Lasker by 3-0, Ettlinger by 5-0, and finally he beat Showalter, probably the strongest American master of the time, BB 6-2, with professional in England and America 31 2 draws. But results such as these were no longer considered sensational. One had come to expect them from Lasker. The American chess fraternity was delighted. Now they not only had titans in the country, the world champion, the grand old man of chess, they also had that lean young man Lasker who seemed all set for divesting the old man of his crown. And why indeed shouldn't he? Of course, there was Dr. Tarrasch over in Europe. What with Breslau 1889, Manchester 1890, Dresden 1892, he had won 3 great international tournaments in a row, and he had proved equally invincible in match play. But he had never yet dared to challenge titans. On the other hand, Lasker had repeatedly declared his readiness to cross swords with his famous compatriot, but Tarrasch had haughtily declined the challenge, declaring himself utterly unimpressed by Lasker's long string of successes in relatively minor tournaments and matches. The young man, he said, should first prove his worth by attempting to win one or 2 major international events. He is not entitled yet to play a match against someone like me. Lasker's answer was characteristic. He challenged the world champion, Wilhelm Steinitz. For the first time, at one of the decisive moments of his life, he gave public evidence of his almost infallible instinct to strike at the right time and then to put all his strength and courage into staking everything he had. To be accepted as a challenger by the world champion and to fight for his crown was high honor indeed, and to be beaten by the world champion would have been nothing to be ashamed of by anybody. Yet, had it happened to the 27-year-old Lasker at the hands of a tired and ailing Steinitz, more than twice his age, it would have been too much to bear, even for one steeled in so hard a school of life as Lasker's. Never content to aim at any but the highest peak, it is probable that Lasker, had he lost the match, would have turned his back on chess forever, seeking fulfillment in what at all times he considered his real spiritual home, the realm of philosophy and mathematics. It was not to be. He was fated to reach the highest peak of chess at the age of 27, and to stay up there for another 27 years. Even then and up to the end of his days he was never quite to get away from chess, and it was only during interludes that he could return to his true love in the rarefied atmosphere of philosophical argument and abstract mathematical thought.